Frozen desserts are one of the hottest menu trends today. Watermelon juice brings beautiful color, delicious flavor to popsicles, ice cubes, or other frozen treats. Here I'm going to show you how to make these Thai, watermelon, and coconut popsicles. First, muddle the kaffir lime leaves and the Thai bird chili with the sugar in a mortar and pestle until crushed and fragrant. Remove the leaves and the chilies and reserve the sugar for the popsicle base mixture. In a small bowl, toss the reserved sugar with the coconut and the ginger. Add your watermelon juice, lime juice, and vanilla, and stir this to combine until the sugar has dissolved. If desired, once the sugar has dissolved, add your rum and mix well. Next, let's fill the popsicle molds. Pour the watermelon mixture into the popsicle mold and then place in the freezer until completely frozen, preferably overnight. To unmold, remove the popsicles from the freezer and let them stand at room temperature for about 5 to 10 minutes. Alternatively, you can freeze the watermelon mixture in an ice cube tray and serve these colorful and flavorful ice cubes in a beverage of your choice, such as agua fresca, limeade, or even a martini. To find this recipe and others in this series, visit ciaprochef.com/watermelon.
This shrimp curry with coconut steamed rice is actually a Thai take on the classic shrimp scampi. Instead of using lemon, we will be using lemongrass and kaffir lime leaves and replacing cream with coconut milk, introducing Thai flavors to your customers via a familiar, lovable dish. Start by cooking the rice. Place the soaked and dried rice in a saucepot with the water and coconut milk. Bring to a simmer and reduce. Cook covered until done. In the meantime, you can make your curry paste. Using a mortar and pestle, grind the ginger, the lemongrass, the chili, garlic, shallots, kaffir lime leaves until it becomes a nice paste. Take the coconut cream and put it in a wide saute pan over medium-low heat. When the oil starts to separate, add in your curry paste. Saute for about 1 minute until fragrant. Add in the shrimp and saute for about 1 or 2 more minutes, mixing and tossing the shrimp around until nicely coated. Add the coconut milk and the no liquid concentrated vegetable stock. Cook until the shrimp are just done. Turn off the heat and squeeze about a tablespoon of lime juice over the shrimp. Mix well and serve the shrimp over the rice, garnished with fresh cilantro leaves. So there is our shrimp curry with coconut steamed rice, made with no liquid concentrated vegetable broth.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you all had really fun, interesting, inspiring seminars and are back for our next general session, which is ever-expanding worldviews on menus, global influences, signature styles. Welcome back to all of you, and also welcome back to our online audience. We have an online audience following our live cast of 21,000 viewers at the moment, which we're excited about. They don't get to taste the food, but learning a lot, I'm sure. So to get us started, one of the things, as I spoke about in our opening, in my opening remarks, was sort of our commitment to expanding awareness around world flavors, food cultures, and so forth. In addition to this series, for many, many years, we have been sending our team, our digital media team, around the world to capture these gold standards of world cuisines, and literally they've been to way more than a dozen countries over the last 13 years. And so we wanted to give you a little preview of our next edition. We're very excited to announce the launch of the newest edition of our digital media initiative, Savoring the Best of World Flavors Thailand. And you'll notice someone in the video that was our host, Chef Ian Kittichai, who's going to be on next year. This is our 13th edition of the video documentary series, sponsored by our partners at Unilever Food Solutions. They've been with us from the beginning. It was a joint vision, and we're very appreciative to their support over these years. And the series has won 2 James Beard Awards. It explores the best in food and cooking around the world. You can download the videos and recipes, which are now just recently posted at ciaprochef.com/WCA. We'll send an email link out to you on Monday, so you don't have to remember that. Let's have a peek at the new series on Thailand.
Great. Yet another place that I immediately want to go to, right? to introduce our next session and then all of the great presenters who will be part of it, it is my pleasure to introduce Tara Stevens, who is originally Welsh, spent a lot of time in Britain as a food and travel journalist, writing for publications like The Art of Eating, Condé Nast Traveler, Fool, and then now she has sort of a dream life where she's mostly based in Fez, Morocco, a little bit in Barcelona too. She still travels quite a bit, and she does a lot of really wonderful things, including having renovated a small traditional dar in the Fez Medina, and she hosted a series of chefs from all over the world in a restaurant that she had there, and that's how the session she'll be doing this afternoon came on, because she would bring chefs like Annalise Gregory, who's here from Tasmania, to Morocco and have them cook with Moroccan ingredients only their food. So a lot of cultural exchanges and idea exchanges, flavor exchanges, and that will be the topic of her workshop this afternoon, and that really came out of the conversations we were having. So these kind of inspirational moments that come through by meeting amazing people like Tara and hearing about the work that they're doing and the research and cooking practice, theoretical work is really, really special, and we're very honored to have someone like Tara with us today. So please join me in welcoming Tara Stevens to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. As someone who's lived abroad for most of my adult life, particularly in Spain and Morocco with a few forays elsewhere, I was particularly excited to present this session. We're going to be welcoming 6 chefs onto the stage today who all have one thing in common, and that was that in order to begin their journeys in their homeland, and in some cases to better appreciate and understand what they had in their own backyard, so to speak, they first had to go away. Each of their stories led them to a place that enabled them to create a truly unique style. Not only true to place, but enabling them to express it in a different way, which I think makes some of their restaurants some of the most exciting places to eat. Our first guest on stage is Christina Bowerman, who actually spent her formative years here in California. She was greatly influenced by the Puerto Rican chef Egil Valentin, who taught her that modernity comes through respecting tradition. Her cooking has a contemporary boldness of modern American dishes, and yet it's very deeply rooted in the cucina povera of her home region in Puglia, Italy. She joined Glass Hosteria in 2005 and got her first star by 2010. And I think that's thanks, no doubt, to her belief that it's essential to have a fearlessness when it comes to fusing flavors and techniques. She's one of very few women in Italy to have a Michelin star, and she's passionate about the empowerment of women in the kitchen and the role that they have to play in our global culinary evolution. So please welcome Christina Bowerman to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this amazing event. I am really happy and proud to be here. I am going to just help myself out with like a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm going to be really short because we don't have that much time. So this is me, my bio. One of the things that I really try to stress all the time is what I really want to express through my food. Food is very important to me. And it's the way that I express my creativity. But it was not enough for me. I mean, just preparing a nice, very good, tasty dish was not enough. I belong to like a upper middle class family. I wanted to always be a professional. I graduated in law, worked as an attorney for a couple of years, then moved to the States, worked in design, graphic design for about 10 years, and then I graduated in culinary arts. So I wanted to give like depth to what I did. So I always saw food as culture. What kind of culture, though? I was born in Puglia. I was born in the south of Italy. I actually formed myself as a person and a professional in the States, amazing country where the dream is still alive. You can really be whoever you want, and it's one of the very few countries, and you all should be aware of that, one of the very few countries where you actually can do that. And then I went back to Italy, not with intention of going back to Italy. I was supposed to be there for about 6 months, and then after 6 months turned in about 11 and a half years, more or less. Yeah, that's the story of my life. So I really wanted to express creativity, but also culture, because food is culture. One of the latest things that I discovered and really impressed me is that if you really go study every ingredient that is in every, food tradition, it really belongs probably to somebody else. Not only that, but it's used as if it were mine, as if it belonged to that culture. So one of the things that I like to do is actually having no limit. In my kitchen, there's no limit. You can use any ingredient, but not as an addition, but as a complete integrated ingredient through in that recipe. So one of the things, for instance, that I'm going to do today is to demonstrate how an ingredient that doesn't belong to the Italian tradition is actually used, very popular, and everybody thinks it belongs to the Italian tradition, but it's not that way. And that happens for everything. One of my favorite dishes, really, is the one that I presented at one of the latest conventions that is inspired to a guy in South America that actually prepares mole and ages it. Well, what I did is that mole is tomatoes, it's braised, it's umami coming from this like braised tomatoes, vegetables, and then chocolate. Well, in Italy, in Rome in particular, we have like oxtail Roman way. It's tomatoes and meat and chocolate. So what I did is that I actually aged that sauce, creating a parallel with that guy. And for me, it was like so important. It's like we are at the opposite side of the world, but at the same time, we think the same way, we do the same way, and we want people to enjoy the same way. So that's, for me, what culture is in food. Then food as enterprise. I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And one of the reasons is because in Italy especially, but it's a worldwide spread disease. People think that women cannot be wives, mothers, and professional at the same time. There's like a problem in overlapping these figures. It's like you can be either one. You cannot be all together. So I wanted to demonstrate actually that you could do that. And so right now I'm at the head of about 120 people. Got 3 restaurants. One is my little jewel, and that's the Glassosteria, the one that earned the Michelin star in 2010. But I try to create a business and create, like a future for the people that I work with, transmitting what is like really my passion. And finally, as a social support, I never forget that whenever you get to a certain level and whenever you can, it's not your choice to help other people, but it's your duty to actually use the position that you have to better, in general, situations like, for instance, in particular, children and women. So as far as women are concerned, of course, I am all about women. I am all about defending them. And I'm all about creating role models. Because, you see, we have thousands, millions of women who actually have incredibly important positions, but we don't talk enough. Social media don't talk enough. Journalists don't talk enough. And so what happens is that there are no role models people are inspired by, especially young women and children. There's one particular association. I belong to a bunch of associations that I try to help with my work, but there's one in particular. It's Fiorano for Kids, and we actually pay the salary for a researcher in a hospital, a very famous hospital in Rome, and it's about ketogenic diet in epilepsy for children. So I've been following them for the last 6 years. I'm one of the 10 members that founded it, and I'm still following it. This is all the stuff. I'm the president of this association that I really, really care for because it tries to change things and switch things from a legal and legislative point of view. So we actually work a lot with the authorities and the government, the Italian government. This is my Glassosteria. These are the dishes, some of the dishes that I do. Like, we don't have that much time, so I'm just going to go through, like, really, really quick about one. The 3 small ones, the 3 small figures, the one that is on the left, the little small panino. That is, I always consider that my breakthrough style. With that panino that was made in 2006 in a restaurant that is, had ambitions, wanted to get a Michelin star. In Italy, nobody has ever served anything that could be eaten with hands. Well, I come around from, I come from the States, and I thought, you know what? I really want to get like high-end food, what is considered the perception of high-end food, and bring it to like street level, but not diminishing the quality. Exactly the opposite, keeping the same quality, but presenting in an easy way so that the connection between whoever eats and whoever creates is never, ever interrupted. That is a licorice panino with a foie gras escalope, a fake mango ketchup, a pasito wine mayo, and finally rice chips. So it's basically a hamburger, a small hamburger that is served, and it has been around. It's still on the menu, and people ask for it. It was really what happened. Whenever I put it on the menu and people thought I was crazy, right at that second, I understood exactly what I wanted to do, and that was the path that I followed all the way to today. These food trucks, of course, Austin, Texas, lived there for 9 years. I couldn't do anything differently. And that's like my easy going. That's my market. I have a market stall. Well, that's all of us. And that's Fiorano for Kids. This is me in India helping out kids and women because it was for women entrepreneurs. That's it. And put your money where your mouth is my favorite saying. So now, let's go to the recipe, otherwise we're going to be really, really late. One of the things that I did is I decided to prepare gnocchi, but what kind of gnocchi? It's a different kind of gnocchi as opposed to the ones that you guys know about. So I basically play with science. Like many of my colleagues, I believe that science is the basic of everything. If you can really understand the process, then eventually you can really dominate it. So in Italy, the gnocchi is like a very, very, very soft. Well, I come from the South. I have to bite. There's no way around it. So what I did is that I used basically the knowledge that I have about gluten to develop the gluten that I wanted. No eggs in here, just flour, starch, potatoes. But the potatoes are sorry about that. The potatoes are cooked in a very, very particular way. It's 160 grams of salt in a liter of water for 250 grams of potato. It's almost like I dehydrated the potatoes while I cook them in water, which is kind of weird, but that's what happens. I don't need to add then any salt whatsoever. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt in the water where I'm going to boil it. But now let's talk about the ingredients. So these are going to be like elastic almost. Whenever you bite into it, it's like, oh, wow, these are gnocchi? Weird. But it's only potatoes, flour, and starch. To prepare these and to understand what, how starch works, I actually tackled the scientist in Italy called Dario Bressanini, worse than a football player, until he actually understood I was not a real stalker, but I wanted to really work with him. And we actually did a study together on retrogradation of starches, and that helped me out to create this gnocchi as well. So these gnocchi, I prepare them. They are like 3 grams each, and I freeze them so that they keep the shape. So the ingredients. Sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is not something that belongs to Italian tradition. Not at all. It was by chance. It was like a ship wrecked somewhere, and they basically discovered that there was this amazing fish. So they started to bring it with them because it could be preserved. It was preserved with salt, and then it was unsalted under running water. So what I did, instead of like putting sauerkraut like anybody else in Rome, what I did is that I cooked the sauerkraut in milk. Milk, celery, like the regular mirepoix, bay leaf, and I reduced it. Reduced it up to the point in which this milk actually tastes like the fish. How did I thicken it up? With kuzu. Where is it? Actually, it was it. Sorry. That's the flour and starch. Kuzu. Kuzu, you probably know, all about it. And I use it because it's a natural ingredient that allows me to thicken the sauce this way. So this sauce, this milk, is sauerkraut milk. And then, that's the South in me. I couldn't help myself. This is nduja. Andouille is a sausage. It's all of these ingredients, they are very, very poor ingredients. They belong to the poor kitchen. And so basically, I made a cream out of this sausage that it's with sausage, pepperoncino, and some tomato. That's it. That's all it is in here. I am going to steal his scissors for a second because I don't have anything. I hope he's not going to get mad. All right? He's not going to. And we are going to cook the gnocchi. So this is my sauce thickened up. The gnocchi are cooking. It's just about 3 minutes, 2 minutes cooking time. And we are going to prepare our dish. To make the gnocchi this nice color, what we do is that we generally use some saffron, or if you don't have any saffron, because you're really not going to taste it. If you want to taste it, you can add more. But in this particular case, I just wanted the color because it's more palatable. Like anything that is yellow, you can tell in Italy, especially, a lot of cheeses have a saffron addition, just because the shepherds, they could actually sell it more, higher price because it looked better. So what I do is that I use just a pinch of saffron or a pinch of turmeric. Okay. Now we are going to try to use this funnel. That's going to be hard. Okay. We're going to get a little bit of the fish that we are going to put. Whoops. I'm going to distribute a little bit of gnocchi all around. And then finally, we're going to pour our sauce on one side of the plate. So that the customer actually has to work to eat it. They have to mix it. And here, we have some celery leaves. Oh my God, I'm out of time. And some celery. And that's it.
Christina, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
They look amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm also amazed by how much time you have for so many amazing projects. Thank you. Our next chef is Sau del Rosario, who comes from Pampanga in the Philippines, which is also known as the culinary capital, really, of the Philippines. He's the third generation of a family of chefs. And we were talking yesterday about how Filipino cuisine is actually quite hard to define because there are so many influences into it from colonization over the centuries, be it Spanish or Chinese, Indian. So there's an innate fusion going on there. And when he was a young man, he left for Paris to train in the kitchens there, but it was not with the intention of changing the fundamental story of traditional dishes, but rather to refine and develop them. Today, all of Sau's cooking is really a celebration of the people and the places that have shaped him as a chef. And his book, 20 Years of Love and Cooking, his restaurants, Café Fleur, 25 Seeds, and Frida, which is a Mexican-Filipino fusion, pay homage to this fact. His dish today is actually quite interesting because it's a very fresh look at a very old recipe. He would like to begin with a short video before he comes on stage, so we'll start there.
Angeles really is a special place for me. It is one place where all my senses come to life, you know. When you go to the market, the sound of people. And they would make an effort to open it up. Then they open it, it turns red. That fascinates me. And nothing beats that, the life and the color and the texture of palenque. Inspirations. To my mom, she's inspiration because she taught me the ABCs of cooking. But with my dad, he gave so much meaning on the word cooking. He showed me passion. He taught me sacrifice for family. So my mom and my father were my two inspirations. Well, I decided to come back, particularly to my city, my hometown, because I thought my father was growing old. Once I got back to Angeles City, then I decided, oh, ganito pala kaganda yung place, you know. And this is the only time I really appreciated the beauty and the culture and the rich history of this place. It has a story to tell. And that's something to be happy about. And that's what I like about being here in Angeles City. Philippine food is very diverse. It's mostly Hispanic. And what I know about Philippine food is very personalized. Say we have a newly caught fish, and 8 siblings in the family, we have different sauces, very personalized. And that's how we treat food. And I think the best way to promote Philippine cuisine is to love it. I was really exposed to good food in our table in every day. So when I grew up, I studied in the university, and then I went to culinary school. And I always wanted to be, I don't want to be like cooking for my family alone. I want to make people happy, just like my mom did to us. The feeling that a guest will tap in the shoulder and then they would say, hey, that food is just awesome and it's heavenly and it's delicious. I wouldn't sleep because I would feel good about myself to make people happy from what I cook for them. You know, you must take risks. You must take some sacrifices to be successful. You have to dream big, but to dream you have to dream with your eyes open. That's what I say. You have to work on your dreams. You have to look on your goal, and that's the piece of advice I could give you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sau del Rosario.
I hate that drama. I hate the drama part. Anyway, Good morning, everyone. I was introduced, and well, I'm doing a quick demo. Prior to that, I want to tell you a little bit of myself. The two words that I learned when I moved to France is oui chef. That means yes chef, of course. If you watch the movie Ratatouille, I was the one guy who gets spanked and get bullied, and yeah, that's the story of my life. And you know, as chefs, we dream about going to France, and we always think that that will shape us, that will mold us as a good chef. And so that's what I did. I packed my bag and moved to France without knowing the language. So I worked in this 3-Michelin restaurant, and it was tough. It was battlefield, as you know. You could see it from the movie, Gordon Ramsay, you know, Alain Chappelle, they do the same thing. But it was a struggle. It's chaotic. It's very physical. It's very abusive. But then I know I'm in a battleground. I have to gear up, and I have to be strong, and I have to fight back. And that's what I did. So people would ask me what Philippine cuisine is, and I would just turn my back because I really don't know what to tell them because it's really complicated. It's very diverse. It's very different. So I had this idea. I told the guy who's been preparing our meal for our lunches and dinner, I said, why don't I cook for them and probably do some Filipino food? So I prepared some sinigang, adobo, callos, arroz caldo, menudo, sarjado, other Spanish and Malay dishes and Chinese dishes. And then I got their attention. Of course, they started asking, how did you learn how to make Spanish food? How did you come up with these noodles and Chinese thing? And well, that's who I am, and that's what Philippine cuisine is all about. And one of the dishes that really stood out is tamales. Why? Because, well, we all know what tamales is. It was brought by the Spaniard through galleon trade to the Philippines. Of course, they learned it also from the Mexicans. And then we adopted it. We loved it, but we didn't have much corn, so we only have rice. And, you know, we eat rice for breakfast and lunch and snack and midnight snack. So we started with rice, and we wrap it with banana leaves. We don't have corn husk, and then we steam it, and that's the traditional way of doing tamales in the Philippines. But the important thing about Philippine food is it's very narrative, the story behind each food. I grew up when we have fiestas in our towns, and my mom would cook tamales, which is the star of the fiesta. Like a week before she started wrapping all these tamales, as kids, we would go around and start to stir all the sauces and burn all the banana leaves and etc. And we cook all this stuff like chicken, boiled chicken and everything. I have good memories of it because it brought the family together. Tamales is a personal thing to me. It's an emotional thing to me. Sorry. And, okay, pause. Okay, first word. The tamales is my mom. And that's why when I came back after working all over the world, I've been an expat for 15 years, I decided to come back to pay homage, to go back where I started when I grew up. You know, the best part is I opened a restaurant, and I want to commemorate, I want to give respect to my mom, and I opened the restaurant called Cafe Fleur, which is basically all of my mom's recipes, including tamales. And tamales is a dying recipe in the Philippines, because when you say tamales to the millennials, to the young generations, they will think it's your grandmother's food. And you will not find it anymore anywhere except in the churches, where old ladies will cook tamales every morning, and they will sell it to the old ladies, right? But I love tamales because, like I said, it's very special to me. So what I did, the challenge is how can I bring these tamales back to life? And I wanted to bring it back to my menu and come up with something different, so I could reconnect millennials to the tamales. So I come with an idea with my training from France. I would probably be different and introduce it to the young generation. So in a few minutes, I'm going to do it. And since then, it was the most Instagrammable item in the menu. And indeed, it was the best-selling item in the restaurant. How about that? Yeah, and success. And yeah, it's really special. So I'm going to at the back, and then I'll show you how I did it. I turned 20, no, not my age. I turned 20 years as a chef, and I dedicated the book to my mother, and it's all my mom's recipe. And other chefs whom I've worked abroad, say in Italy, in France, in Singapore, China, in Thailand, I worked as an expat. I collected their recipes. I gave thanks to them. It's just fitting to give thanks to them. And when I turned 20 that day, at the exact time that I was born, October 25, I went to France. And it's emotional because it was my second home. I had the worst and the best time in France. And I think every chef that I've met, I went to the same boulangerie where I live, and I think there's all this glorious. I went to River Seine. I did everything, and I come up with this book. Anyway, normally, you have to do something like you have to make a chicken stock, and this is a very strong chicken stock, and then before you have to do scratch, you have to get the rice done from scratch. You have to pound it with, this like a mortar and pestle. So I got this, we call it galapong, which is more on the rice powder with milk. And then I'll make a slurry out of it. In the Philippines, tamales, in our region, we call it bobo too. Why? I'll tell you in a while. Okay? And then I put some coconut, and then I make my slurry. If you have the tamales, it's basically like this, right? But of course, in the Mexican, who are Mexican here, I hope they don't kill me. I was in Mexico last year, and I was, okay, there's this good story. The Mexican ambassador went to my restaurant, and he saw tamales, and he was surprised and he ordered it. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from the embassy. They asked me to go to Mexico. And I know, I said, I think they would kill me there for, doing the tamales. And guess what? They asked, I went to this gastronomic forum. It's like a big event for foodie. And they asked me if I could show them my way of doing tamales. And of course, I did it in front of them. And Celia Floran, who is the tamales queen, the old lady who is dear to me, came to me and she said, like in front of many people, she cried and she hugged me and thanked me for preserving their culture in the Philippines. In fact, I'm going there next week to see her again. So now you get that very good texture. And you know what annatto seeds are? They're seeds that they have a very good coloring, red coloring. So if you simmer them a bit, you get this nice coloring. So that's what gives them that's what gives the dish the yellow color. I'm running out of time. I talk too much. And then it turns like this. It's beautiful, and the aroma. And then in the Philippines, we put some fish sauce, some cayenne pepper. That's about it. Then when it's ready, okay, normally you get some banana leaf, and then you put it and you wrap it, you steam it, and that's what tamales is. But other way, I have to do it my way, like I said. So, put in a glass. I prepare my sauce. So I have already the cooked version, chilled version. Cut it off. And then put it in a nice container. The cost is probably like $1 or $50, but if you sell it at a restaurant, it will be $20. hey, you have to go to France, right? Paid so much. And then, to present it, put a little more of this red coloring. That gives you the drama. I love drama. Then, of course, you start simmering the chicken. You could get the meat to garnish your tamales. Or bobotu. Sorry, I failed to explain what bobotu is. I'm running out of time. But nevertheless, some egg, some roasted peanuts.
So can I just clarify there? Boboto is the Filipino word for
Yes,
tamale,
bobotu.
basically.
Because that time, okay, quick, girls are not allowed to boat. So women go out to boat, and then girls will gather themselves and cook some tamales. And then, of course, they talk and they say, oh, we're just like this, we're doing the same thing. We're like voting. And they said they call this thing as bobotu. Right? Then, some edible flour, because my restaurant is called Cafe Fleur, because my mom loves flour. Our house is surrounded with flowers, that's why I named it like Cafe Fleur. Some micro sprouts, some coriander. Okay. Then, voila. You have your tamales, the Philippine style.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.
I think that's the most beautiful tamale I've ever seen, certainly. Our next chef is Ian Kittichai. As a little boy, Ian would go with his mother daily to the water markets on the clongs of Bangkok, and it began a lifelong passion for food. When he reached the age of 16, he actually left to seek his fortune in London, and it's remained a major influence on one side of his cooking, and then on the other side, he's been very instrumental in taking Thai food out into the world. He's actually a UN ambassador for the cuisine as well. In 2004, he opened self-named Kittichai in New York, followed by Murmuri in Barcelona in 2008, which, oddly enough, was one of the first restaurants I wrote about in Barcelona when I had a column there. That was a time when Thai food tended to be pesto mixed with coconut milk. And he also opened a consulting firm, Cuisine Concept & Co. But he couldn't get he couldn't get the gastropub boom that he was seeing in London out of his head. And so in 2010, he opened Hide and Seek in Bangkok, which was Bangkok's first proper gastropub. And so it was great drinks with very comforting and familiar food with a Thai twist. So he would do bangers and mash, but the mash would be steamed as opposed to boiled, and the bangers would be like an isan sausage or something like that. His flagship restaurant, Isiya, opened in 2011, and that really showcases the best of these cumulative years of cooking around the world. And we're going to be seeing some of that today. So please welcome Ian Kittichai to the stage.
Ooh. Sawasdee krap. Thank you so much for coming today. And then I just want to say hello to everyone. And then I think today is going to be like a good day to do a couple of dishes from my restaurants. First of all, I would like to introduce you to some of my restaurants in Thailand and also Singapore as well, and also in New York. So I have a Isiya restaurant, which is Tara was mentioned. We opened in 2011, late 2011, and then I have more like a Asian gastro bar and restaurants, which is Namsa Bottling Trust, and then I have Tangerine, which is more like sustainable farm to table in Singapore, and then Spot Dessert Bar, which is all pure dessert We have 5 locations in New York City. And then this is the Isaya restaurant, which is opened in 2011. And it's almost, I think, 106 or 7 years old. And we have beautiful garden, and then I'm doing my food there. The dish I'm going to do today, which is the limestone tartlet with the tuna. And then this is one of the dishes as well, which is the more like when I opened the restaurants in New York. And then everyone loves baby back rib. So I do my version of baby back rib with red curry paste, palm sugar, and salted yellow beans. So 3 ingredients combined. And then we cook in tom yum stock, and then glaze it, and then finish it on the salamander. Then this is my Asian gastro bar restaurants. We open at night. It's about 108 years old building, colonial style, and then we serve Asian food in our restaurants. Then this is some of the dishes that I bring it back to Thailand. So we do some of the gyoza taco, and then we do banana roti, which is the dessert on the bottom, and then we do pad thai as well. This is the tangerine in Singapore, which is I'm using all ingredients, which is from the neighbor, from Malaysia, Indonesia, and also from Thailand as well. It's inside the spa, so you actually have to walk to the spa to go into the restaurants. Great location. This is the my spot dessert bar in New York. So I'm using the ingredients that from Asian ingredients, and then also making into Western style dessert. I have green tea chocolate lava. I have green tea tiramisu. And then, which is one of the last one, golden toast, which is really popular in Southeast Asia because of, we don't have bread in the beginning, like back in 5 years ago. So since we have bread, what we do, we grill on the charcoal, and then we spread it with margarine, sugar, caster sugar, and then we dip it in condensed milk. So this is more like a childhood, like when you're young, that what dessert you can you grow up with. So basically, what we do, we transform that. We're doing like a toasted bread, and then spread it with butter. We made condensed milk ice cream, and then we get some of the fresh berries to go with. And then this is my cuisine concept company. And then apart from the restaurants, I do also enjoying to do going around the world, and then and trying to bring my cuisine, Thai cuisine, throughout Thailand. So I opened the restaurants in Barcelona 2008, and then Mumbai in Intercon Hotel, and also Hong Kong. I think that's pretty much about it. But I had a great team. Without my team, and then also my wife Sarah, who helping me to put everything in place, and then I can enjoy my cooking. And today, basically, I'm going to do the one of the dish quickly. I'm gonna ask my corporate chef Pui to come and help me as well. We're gonna start it off with the making a batter. So as you see, Thai ingredients, or to cooking Thai food, there's a lot of ingredients to go with. So you start from the scratch. The reason I picked the recipe, this recipe, because of it's all I think it's around over King Rama V, if you know the movie King and I, during that time, and we have a lot of people coming in to do the trading, China, we have Portuguese, we have Italian people who came, Spain, and so on, so on. And then we're going to start it off with the batter. We have rice flour, AP flour, we have oil, and then sugar, salt, we have palm sugar. Then we have the most important is the limestone water. I'm going to mix it into egg yolk. As our ingredient is really natural, so basically we're using this paste, the mineral, it's limestone, so we dilute it into the water, and then that's keeping the tart shell to be very crispy, just like that. So basically, you know, in our cooking, Southeast Asia, can you mix this for me, please? In Southeast Asia, we don't have oven. So our cooking technique is only like 5 cooking techniques. We have fry, we have grill, we have wok fry or saute, and then steam. So mostly everything, either you fry or grill or wok saute. It's really quick. And also coconut milk. Basically, we have to use the hand or spoon to mix the dough, the batter, because of otherwise you create the air bubbles when you fry them. Just like one of these tartlets, you can see the air bubbles because you use the wicks to mix because you try to be faster. But of course, everything everything actually had to be step by step. And then some of this little cup here has so much air bubble in because of you using the wicks to mix it in. So just a little tips on that. And then we have the batter here. And then we're going to start it off with the frying some batter, and then also on top of that we're going to do some sauce to go with. So this dish called miang tuna, which is miang is more like a amuse bush, so it's more small bite from the north of Thailand. Okay. Wait, huh? Could you make the sauce for me, please? So we have the so very hot and warm. We have the roasted shallot, galangal, to put in. Fish sauce, palm sugar. And then we have shrimp paste, which is has been grilled in banana leaves, so to get more flavor. And then we're going to blend it together. Back to the batter to make the tartlet. Usually what you do when you're cooking or you're baking the tart, right? So you roll it out, making a dough, roll it out, and then you fill it inside and you bake it. But what we do, we have to fry them. The oil a little too hot, so we can cool it down a little bit. So what you do, you just dip into the oil and then slowly push it down to make the bottom flat, because otherwise you push it down right away, all the batter will come out because of when the template or the tart shell here is quite hot. It's kind of like seal it off already. I can hear it. It was cooking. And then what we're going to do, we have some of tuna cut already. Then I have shallot, diced shallot, lime with the skin on, toasted coconut. We have ginger and some peanuts. We're going to mix it together. So we just made the sauce, and then it become more like a sticky caramels like that. It had fish sauce, palm sugar, and then toasted coconut, shrimp, dry shrimp as well, and also the roasted shallot and galangal. Okay, so now we have the sauce in.
We're at 2 minutes, Ian.
Okay, no.
No pressure.
We have some of the tuna and all the ingredients which is in. We put a little bird eye chili in. Toasted coconut, and then dry shrimp. Then, chef, we're gonna finish the dish for me, and then I'm gonna go over to do the green curry. We started off with the, I have the green curry paste already, all the ingredients here. At the restaurants, basically, you know, when you do the, what is it? Curry. So if the customer order chicken, beef, pork, and so on, you just scoop the curry into the saucepan, heat it up, throw in the protein, whatever the customer order, and then what we're going to do is we actually go to the table and then making curry fresh on the table for you. It takes like 1 minute and 30 seconds, but I only had 12 seconds left.
You have to do it in 10 seconds, I'm afraid.
So I'm gonna skip the.
So it's the bionic version.
I'm gonna skip the. What is it? I'm gonna skip the curry paste. Okay. I have the shrimp. So we take the tray out to the table, but basically we heat the stone bowl before. It go up to like over 300 Celsius. And then we add the curry paste, and then we kind of like cook it. I'm gonna turn the hot stone off. We have the Thai basil. We have bird eye chili. And then, okay, eggplant. apple eggplant. As you can see, the shrimp basically medium rare already, almost done. Then some green chili. And then we pour in the here we go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next chef is Chef Shinobu Nami, who opened L'Effervescence in Tokyo in 2010. And earlier this year, that won the world's 50 Best Sustainable Restaurant Award. Chef Nami was born and raised in Tokyo, but had always admired the culture in the West. And as is not an unfamiliar story, he began studying politics, but actually decided that wasn't for him, and turned to chefing instead. And it was when he was in New York, he discovered a cookbook by Michel Bras in a bookstore there, and he realized that it was this simple, respectful approach to cooking that was exactly what he wanted to do and achieve in his own food. This took him to France, where Michel Bras became his mentor. It was really a pivotal moment in his career, because what he learned was to see his own culinary culture through fresh eyes. After a stint at the Fat Duck, he returned to Tokyo with renewed vigor, studied the Japanese tea ceremony in depth, and he began to see his calling was not just about nourishing people, but also as a means to open a dialogue with them. Here to talk to us now about that process and his really very poetic dishes and how they're created. Please welcome Chef Nami.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, I just want to start from my presentation. Yeah, title, I mean, our things that we are talking about was ever-expanding worldview of menus. So I am representing Tokyo Chef, or like Japanese chef. So I am talking about the future menu through the eyes of Tokyo Chef or Japanese chef. So after the globalization, the menu should be, we always say, like locally good or logically delicious, or historically connected and seasonally good. So I would like to introduce the one word called hasun. Hasun is about the measurement. Like it's 8 sun. Sun means about 3 centimeters. So hasun means about 24 centimeters. So what is all about? This is the offering for the gods in the Japanese culture. So when we say a prayer, for example, like this, the same prayer for the god, we offer the food on that 24 centimeters plate. And also that always contains the nourishment from the sea and the mountain. So it means like we offer the food, like ingredients from the land and the ocean on one plate. So this is very unique Japanese style of offering to the god. So I want to make this plate through the idea of offering. So I'm going to make beef carpaccio with smoked mussel puree and sakekasu cream. So my ingredients is here. So beef, like red and lean beef. So it's gonna be beaten by like pan, utilizing the bottom side of the pan, and thinly flattened. And we gotta have, here's the mussel puree and some egg emulsion. So I'm gonna mix it. So this puree is smoked mussel and a tiny bit of emulsion, means a little bit of fat in it, and mix it all together to make it nice and smooth. And one more sauce is going to be sake kasu sour cream. So sake kasu is the byproduct of sake making. So after the sake mash has been squeezed out after the finishing the fermentation, this is the leftover from sake making. So, and we need some acidity, so I'm going to make the sour cream sauce together with, and adding tiny bit of sourness and also the richness of the fat from the dairy with the sake kasu. Yeah, I need some water here. It's pretty simple, just sake kasu and sour cream. And maybe so here's the 3 items: the beef meat, and mussel puree, and sake leaves cream. So I'm gonna be building my plate. So firstly, I'm going to season the beef with some wasabi. And put onto the plate. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna have one more beef here. Like this. And season with this sauce. This is called shotsuru. Shotsuru is fermented fish sauce, which is in Akita Prefecture, the north part of Japan. So that has really umami rich. And also finishing with my smoked mussel puree. And also that sake kasu sour cream. And finish with some chives. So this is my offering to the god, and then beef carpaccio. So I am going back to the presentation right now. Sorry, Tara. The logic of deliciousness is about 3 things. Like we are very addicted to fat, and also carbohydrate, which means sweetness, and also the protein, which we call umami. So I'm going to explain about what is umami and how we can control the umami to have a satisfaction. So here's the 3 guides to understand what the umami is. So on the left-hand side, here's the empty taste buds. So taste buds literally having nothing inside. So there's no sensation. But second one has the glutamic acid in the taste buds. So as soon as taste buds feel the glutamic acid, like glutamate, that has some electricity to make feel like savory. But also on the right-hand side, which is enhanced by other nucleic acid. It's written as GMP, but it's one of the nucleic acid called granulic acid. So once these nucleic acid comes above the glutamic acid, that capsule the glutamic acid to make the taste longer, means you feel the more savory and more umami. So here's the chart of the three components. So on the left-hand side, most of the products has glutamic acid, which has umami sensation like tomato, onion, kombu, seaweed, asparagus, and many other vegetables, or cheese, dairy. And on the right-hand side, there's a inosinate acid. For example, like the sardine, bonito, or dry bonito called katsuobushi, and fresh meat like poultry or pork or beef. And the last one is granulic acid, mostly from the mushroom, which is like dry porcini and dry shiitake and dry morels. So beef carpaccio with smoked mussel puree and sake kasu creams, it looks like having a lot of protein, as we explained. But logically explain, like we are enjoying the umami of mussel, not the meat, not the beef itself, but the mussel, because mussel has high glutamic acid. And when you chew the mussel puree together with meat, meat will provide that inosinic acid. So that inosinic acid capsule the glutamic acid of mussel onto your palate, on your taste buds, and make the taste longer. So literally enhanced by beef meat flavor. So meat is an enhancer of umami. So it doesn't have the umami itself, but it's an enhancer. So maybe some people might experience that. For example, when you go to fishing and then catch the fresh fish, and then you cut in fillet and have it, very, very fresh fish. Or maybe the live shrimp, you take off the shell and then you chew it, but you don't have any sensation. It's like almost like gummy. So the reason why is these elements like beef or like a fresh seafood doesn't have much glutamic acid that is not reacting in your taste buds. But if you chew it longer and keep chewing longer, you feel some slight umami. The mechanism is that our saliva has glutamic acid in itself. So technically, we are tasting our saliva enhanced by the meat and fish. So that's the reason why we really love to eat the sashimi with the soy sauce, because sashimi, the fresh meat, fresh fish, doesn't taste so much. But if it's together with glutamic acid of soy sauce, or maybe we make the beef consomme, but we are literally enjoying not the amino acid from the meat, but from the vegetable. So that's one of the way of the understanding, like new understanding of scientific approach of umami sensation. So back to the point, and then after the globalization, many should be environmental friendly. Means we literally craving for the meat or fish or like protein, but maybe we can decrease by enhancing like a good combination or good synergy or hybrid together with. And my opinion, as a Japanese chef, 2 more to make it more delicious and maximizing the umami synergy, and also eat good meat and eat less. We Japanese have a history of 1,200 years of no meat culture. So I think we can do it. I'm not the enemy of the meat industry, or I'm not the promotion for the seafood industry. But anyways, eat more vegetable and supported by smaller amount of meat means like synergizing glutamic acid from the vegetable by the tiny bit of meat, because we love meat. So, and use more fermented seasoning, which has high glutamic acid, but it's very, very environmental friendly. You don't have to use so much energy. It's supported by microbial, so it's natural. That's my point of future menu through the eyes of Tokyo chef and Japanese chef. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chef Nami. I think it's really been very fascinating to learn about how umami works, actually, so thank you for that. Our next chef is Kyle Connaughton, who opened his restaurant, Single Thread, here in California in 2016. It was declared the hottest opening of the year by the website Eater, who described it as blending California comfort with Eastern influences. Now, like Chef Name, Kyle was also very influenced by Michel Bras, but this time at his Tokyo restaurant, which he describes as probably his biggest influence, in fact. And this he followed up with a stint at the experimental kitchen at the Fat Duck, where he helped perfect techniques like the dissolving watch, and a dish named the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. I think one of the things that he has really done is helped to make the somewhat maligned term of fusion much better understood, because he was able to bring together flavor profiles and techniques in absolute harmony with the California landscape. Together with his wife, Katina, who farms 5 acres that produce everything from olive oil to flowers, to some of the ingredients that Kyle uses, so it's not so much about visiting the farm as getting what he really needs. They show what's possible when you really embrace that global influence. So please welcome to the stage, Kyle Connaughton.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I was very happy to be going actually after Namai-san, because we're kind of picking up on some of the themes that he discussed in his demo. And actually, Namai-san and I have worked together on 3 continents. We worked together at Michel Bras, actually in Hokkaido in the North Island for several years, where we first met. And then I came out to the Fat Duck in England to run the experimental for kitchen for 5 years for Aslan Blumenthal, and Namai-san came out for 1 year of that. We got to work together there. And then we've cooked some collaboration dinners here in Sonoma, where our restaurant is in Healdsburg. Just recently, just a few weeks ago, he came out to cook with us to help raise money to support the fire relief charities in support of our recent fires that we've had here in wine country. So we didn't talk about our demos at all leading up to this, but we've become family, and I think our brains are connected. So we realized that we'd be going after each other, talking about some very similar themes. And so, let's say the intro, our restaurant is here in wine country. We're in the western, smaller, a little bit less glamorous cousin to Napa, Sonoma County, so about 45 minutes west of here in a town called Healdsburg, beautiful town located in the center of the sort of northern Sonoma County wine country AVAs. We have a small restaurant there, 5 guest rooms, gardens where guests enjoy part of their dining experience when the weather allows it. And then my wife, Katina, has 5 acres that she farms right on the Russian River, a few minutes from the restaurant, on a 180-acre vineyard parcel. So we enjoy sort of bringing a lot of biodiversity to that particular piece of property there. And we grow all kinds of vegetables all year round. We really specialize particularly in Japanese vegetables, most focused on vegetables from the Kansai region of Japan, so around the Kyoto area vegetables. We grow quite a bit of those on our farm. And we also grow all of the floral, which is a big part of what we do at the restaurant. And we incorporate a lot of the outdoors in at the Single Thread Experience, which is an 11-course menu, which is booked in advance, and we communicate with guests on their dietary restrictions, preferences, allergies, all those things before they come to the restaurant. And essentially, we create a menu tailored to each guest individually, and we have that all worked out before they arrive. So we know everyone who's coming, we know how they like to dine, and then we have a menu planned for them sort of according to their preferences. And that's our form of hospitality is to be able to do that. So we run our restaurant more in a sense, and we think about it less of we're running this fine dining restaurant and more of we're throwing a dinner party every night in our home, and this is our home, a chef and a farmer and the family that works there. And you're coming over to our home for this dinner party for the evening. So every night we're throwing this dinner party, and these are our guests. And just like if you were coming to our home, and we'd want to cook tailored to you if you're a vegetarian or pescatarian or had a shellfish allergy, we think of each individual guest like that. So what that allows us to do is have this advanced dialogue for the guests. So when they arrive, actually they arrive to their first course laid out for them on the table, which is what we're going to do for you today. So we actually brought one of the tables from the restaurant today. This is the table that you'd find if you were 4 guests arriving at the restaurant. This is one of the benefits of doing an away game not too far from your restaurant, where we can steal this for a few hours and get it back in time for service tonight. And so we set this table, and so Katina and her floral team create every day these individual bouquets at each place setting, but also these wood and moss and lichen and floral arrangements that go in the center of the table to support the first course. So everything that you're going to see today comes from our farm, including all of the moss and all of these various floral pieces. So in a way, it's a chef and a farmer slash florist working together. We're not only showcasing these are the ingredients, these are the vegetables, this is today, this is this moment for us here in Sonoma County, that sort of, that sense of place that, chefs are very often talking about. But visually, we're saying this is what's happening outside. So all the floral and what's in front of you is basically what she's seeing at the farm and on our property, and bringing that indoors and incorporating that as part of the dining experience. So Name-san talked about the concept of hasun. You learned a little bit about hasun, and part of that at the top said kai no mono, yama no mono, which means items from the sea and items from the mountains. So for our first course, we follow the traditional architecture of the Japanese kaiseki menu. So the traditional kaiseki menu, 11 courses for us. We don't at all consider ourselves a kaiseki restaurant. We're not Japanese chefs, so we're not in Japan. But we're inspired by that, and we follow the sort of sensibilities and the sort of reverence for nature and the season in the way and the structure of our particular menu. So hasun is a course very near the beginning of the traditional kaiseki menu. Name-san was talking about it in terms of the offering and the square table. We learned a little bit about the name and those measurements. And so what we do is our sort of Sonoma County hasun is a way for guests to come in and have all of these small bites which represent things from basically the land and the sea, what's coming from our farm, what's coming from our waters, as a sort of snapshot. This is today, this is this moment. You're sitting down to this table escape that's created for you. So guests can come in and sort of start their meal right away and have this sort of like more exciting sort of adventure for them. So we've taken this idea of the traditional Japanese hasun and we've made it something for us that's uniquely Sonoma. And we do this, as I said, to show and showcase the products and the moment that's happening in the season, but also as a way for our guests to sort of have this moment of breaking bread and breaking the ice. So in putting together all these dishes that we're going to lay out on the table, some of them are for each guest individually, and some of them are meant to share. So we always have this mix of things that you have individually, and then some items that you share all together. And the reason for this being is we want to make it a very communal experience. And oftentimes with fine dining, it's very much you kind of, you sit in your chair, you're delivered your food, you have your utensils, and it's a procession of plates that you enjoy individually. So with your guests, you're all having this experience together. But the dynamic of actually sharing in food and having this ability to try this and pass this is, as we know from various restaurants that are family style and small plates, it's a really joyous way to dine. And in Japan, you have these certain moments of where you're sharing food around a hot pot, donabe, which is a big part of our cooking, as well as guests get to share in this experience. So we wanted to be able to bring that into a little bit more of a kind of elegant, fine dining setting. This ability for guests to really share in the dishes and share in the moment together. And we put that at the front of the menu so that they can come in and know that they're here to have fun, that they're here to really enjoy, that we're here to take care of them and think about them and maybe their dietary restrictions and not have to put that in their mind of, oh, I can't eat this, and sort of take care of that, which is why we do it all in advance so that we don't have to talk about your lactose intolerance or whatever that may be. So that's kind of in the background, and you can just come in and enjoy and sort of partake in this experience together. So Sean, restaurant chef, is putting together all the small dishes. So every day we have about 11 different items that are on the table when you arrive. And the captain who's greeting you takes you all through, and then you're sort of off on your little adventure, adult sort of Easter egg hunt, as it were. So we start off with 11 sort of cold items, and then we bring in a few more warm items, and that's the first course of the restaurant, which we're going to set up for you now. So the first piece is these boards. They're made out of wood from our farm and also pieces of wood that we found along the Sonoma coast. The moss grows on the trees in the forest that line the farm property. And then these are some of the flowers that Katina's growing right now, also with some of the pea tendrils because we're coming full on into our spring season. So to really show the colors and the sort of seasonality of spring. So when you come in the fall, this may be more of the fall colored leaves, and in different times of the year it has a much different feel. So if you return as a guest with us, every time you sit down to this course, it's a little bit different. So Sean's setting the first piece here. This is kind of a take on the traditional Japanese tamago, not the rolled style, but a sort of singular egg mousse that's made with pureed scallops and then very lightly baked. So it's like a savory egg sort of a souffle, as it were, and a little bit of caviar, citric caviar on top of that. It's just put down here. These are some of the first peas that we're getting to enjoy just the raw, fresh pea while they're very young and tender, with a little bit of saikyo miso. It's a sweet miso from Kyoto. This is a tartare of lamb, so cured lamb loin with shiso buds and a puree of nettles. We're getting a lot of wild nettles right now after the rains. This is a type of kind of barracuda, which we grill and then soak in a liquid of rhubarb from the farm with a little bit of poached rhubarb and some of the radish flowers. from the farm as well. A rolled crudo of a fish called norogoro, which we've lightly cured, and then have some of the braised kombu that we use to make the dashi in there, rolled in there with a little bit of chive. Inside the individual cups here is a cauliflower panna cotta, so we're still having the last of our winter vegetables with a little bit of crispy kale and crispy salsify on top. What do we have next? I get everything on there. Oh, some of the carrots from the farm. So we grow a few different varieties of Kyoto-style carrots called kintoki ninjin. So those have actually been cooked in rendered Wagyu fat with a little bit of spice, mostly sumac. And then these are some of the eggs that come from our chickens. So we have a few different flocks, about 70 heritage breed chickens. So these are eggs that come from our flock of Americanas. So we take their little blue eggs, do a steamed chawanmushi custard in the bottom, a sabayon of mustard miso, and then a little bit of braised komatsuna, one of the Japanese greens that Katina grows on the inside here. Firefly squid with an oitashi, which is kind of like a simmered, Japanese-style simmered green mizuna that we grow in the farm. And then ohitashi, gomai, which is sesame dressing. That is some of our greens, tatsoi, that we grow at the farm, blanched and then lightly dressed. So the idea here again is really like showcasing in the sort of like the most fresh and sort of least manipulated way the ability to really taste those vegetables and taste that seafood on its own. And then lastly, we have some gooey duck with the green strawberries. So starting to get the strawberries are forming, but they're not quite red. So we have this really nice sort of bracingly acidic green strawberries with the green strawberries and a little bit of nasturtium juice. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you so much, Carlos. It really makes you appreciate the bounty of Mother Nature seeing that, I think. But I'm curious, how many diners do you have
about
night?
50 a night, yeah.
50?
Yeah, so 50 times 11, it's a lot of little tiny plates that get made all night for one course.
And how many people do you have working with you to get it set up?
In the kitchen, we're 18 in total.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for bringing your table.
Of course, yeah.
And bringing your beautiful, beautiful food.
Right, absolutely.
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Excuse me? I can't do anything about the technology, I think. I'm just going to give us a minute to take photos. Okay. Okay, photographers, I'm going to introduce our next and final chef now. Annalise Gregory, who's come to us from Tasmania. So Annalise Gregory started cooking at the tender age of 15, and it's really been a journey that's taken her halfway around the world in getting to where she is today. From the Ledbury in London to Le Meurice in Paris, from Michel Bras in La Guiola to the R&D kitchen at Mugaritz in San Sebastian, from Key in Sydney to Resto 7 in Fez, which was the restaurant project I ran. She's learned from the hands of the old guard and from the hands of most avant-garde. And what's fascinating about Annalise is that how all of this has culminated in completely changing her perspective on the kind of chef that she wanted to be. After a brief stint back in Sydney at Barbro's, she had that aha moment and realised that what she desperately missed was the countryside and a closer connection to the product that she'd had at Bra and at Mugaritz. So she took herself off to Hobart in Tasmania, where she's now head chef at Franklin Restaurant, and where her daily commute involves a dive for sea urchin or abalone. And she's taking a much more natural approach to cooking. So ladies and gentlemen, please can we welcome Annalise Gregory to the stage.
Oh, wow. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Annalise, and I'm feeling a bit rebellious today. I don't know if it's the leopard print pants or the amount of coffee that I've had this morning, but I've decided to change my demo dish. I'm sorry. So it's because I was going to do kingfish with some native Australian ingredients, some finger limes and things which I brought with me, which don't exist in America. But so when I was organizing my dishes for this whole event, I wanted to do abalone because it's something that I dive for at least once a week. I'm also an amateur free diver since I moved to Tasmania. And they told me that abalone is not currently commercially available in California. And so, you know, being me, I was like, well, I'll take a morning off from work and go diving for it. So I took 2 mornings off from work and went diving for abalone. And then froze them, packed them in my suitcase and brought them to the CIA with me. And I know, I just felt like they kind of deserved their moment in the limelight, you know? That, that they deserve to be seen because of the story and because I went into the ocean to get them. You know, I braved the sharks and all the things, and I went diving alone, which you should never do, and everyone tells you not to. But, you know, hey, sometimes it happens. So, I'm going to do a demo for you. Wow, okay, here we go. So anyway, abalone, it's a large sea snail. It grazes on seaweed, essentially. There's 2 types in Tasmania, blacklip and greenlip. Blacklip are found in the colder waters. I live like right down on the southern tip of Tasmania, which is a small island off the bottom of Australia, basically between Australia and Antarctica. So the water's really cold. I wear a 7.5 mil wetsuit, so it's like subarctic. So anyway, abalone. I go for like the Chinese methods of cooking them generally, so either really short cooking or really long cooking. So these ones, I put them in a seaweed dashi and braise them in that for 2 hours in the steamer. And so they come out super tender. So then all you really have to do is slice them and you're ready to go. Otherwise, I tend to shuck them raw and just go for like a really fast, like 2-second cooking. So abalone comes out of the shell, take the guts off. A lot of people tend to take this frill around here off. I like to leave it on. Being in Tasmania, I find that like I've gotten really close to a lot of the produce, and I really see it in a different way than I did maybe like when I was in the city, or you know, when I wasn't harvesting things myself. And so I've realized like abalone, for instance, has 3 completely different textures, which I never realized before. So like this part here, the foot where it attaches to the shell, is a lot more dense. Sometimes I eat it raw as sashimi. It's like super firm. The base where it attaches to the rocks is a slightly softer texture, and then the frill is like super gelatinous, so it's a different texture again. And also something else I had never done is I've come to start using the guts. So the sauce for this dish is actually made from the liver of the abalone. And then the rest of the guts, I dehydrate them and use them in fish sauces and things at the restaurant. And all of the trimmings I turn into exo sauce. So it's kind of like nose to tail cooking, but with seafood, I suppose. So after you've cooked your abalone, you just need a really sharp knife. And I finally slice them. So since I've been in Tassie, not really on purpose, but it's kind of come about that I've stopped using any food that isn't from Tasmania. It's not part of an overarching culinary philosophy or anything. It just like, it seems to make sense. Because we're so far away from everything, why transport products halfway around the world to get to Tassie? So I've stopped using, like I don't use kombu, for instance, because there's no point for me to import it from Japan all the way to the bottom of the world. But wakame is an invasive species of seaweed that grows in Tasmania from the Japanese ships that used to come into the harbour. And so kind of, it's a big rabbit hole, but it kind of led to me harvesting seaweed. So now I harvest seaweed to use in the restaurant as well. And so that features heavily in this recipe, also because it's what abalone eats. So it's kind of like, you know, chicken and corn or something like that. Serving the product with whatever it eats. Okay. Okay, so slice your abalone. I've got some skewers. I've got some pickled shiitake mushrooms. Actually, at work, generally, I lacto-ferment these, so just 2% salt brine, 5 to 7 days, and they come up really nicely. There's a local grower. And then pretty much all of the food I do these days is, it's out of necessity. It's like a cuisine of necessity. So, I mean, there's no fishmongers or large suppliers that we have access to. I only use like local fishermen. So I've got like 4 different fishermen, and I only have fish when they rock up because they've caught something. And because it's Tasmania, they'll go fishing and then take 2 weeks off and stay at home and watch TV and smoke spliffs or whatever they do. So everything's a bit random. So we reprint the menu every day, and every day is purely based upon what comes in that day. So with the abalone, for instance, I walked into the cool room, and so we make cheese. We culture a lot of dairy products. I make bread. We do a lot of charcuterie, and so I had like 40 pig jowls hanging up, and so I used guanciale in this recipe at home because I walked in the cool room and I was like, what can I stick with this? And I was like, right, guanciale, I've got heaps of that. Okay, fine. They'll work together. And like, coincidentally, they do work together. So it all just kind of worked out. So anyway, sliced pork fat, that's been cured in salt. There you go. Abalone, that's been steamed for 2 hours. Fermented mushrooms. All right, so that's the skewer. And then sauce for it. So the sauce is made from, as I said before, we've got the liver of the abalone. What else? The cooking liquid that it's been steamed in, some butter. And so when I've been diving for abalone, it's actually, well, I find it really interesting, you might not. I always imagined that seaweed was just like, you know, it's these plants, they live in the sea, they're always the same, they're always there. Most often it comes in a package dried from Japan. But when you go diving, you realize actually seaweed's seasonal. I know, it blew my mind. I went diving and I was like, okay, I need to collect some wakame. And then I went in and there was nothing there. And I was like, oh my God, it dies off over winter? Who knew? But it caused me to become really interested in it and, like, you know, to do some research and things like that. So I harvest wakame, which is moderately a grey area legality-wise, but it's an invasive species. It's not native to Tasmania. It's colonizing the seabeds, and it changes the environment for things like abalone that are native to Tasmania and blocks out the sunlight hitting the rocks. And so it's actually something that should be being cleared out. I know in California that there's people that like go out and harvest wakame to get rid of it from your ecosystem because it changes it. But I also find the plants super interesting. So when you harvest wakame, it's like the plants are about as tall as me, like when I collect them. And it's actually leaves, which, you know, you all think of as wakame, like that's the leaf, but they're attached to a central spine, and then there's this piece at the base which is called mekabu, which is, see it there in all of its gooey glory. So this is actually kind of like the fruiting or reproductive part of the wakame plant. And then I know, I was really like amazed by them, and I thought they were beautiful, and so I picked some and I took them into work, and all the chefs were like, oh, that stuff's disgusting. There's nothing we can do with that. And I was like, you know, things like that just make me more determined. I'm like, they don't realize that that just puts me on, so I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to crack this one. So anyway, there followed a couple of weeks of like mekaboo trialing. So take the mekaboo. I dehydrate them, then I rehydrate them in basically a mix of different soy sauces and like just a stock, and then braise them for 2 hours, cut them off the stem, and then you're left with this frill. So then I julienne it up and then put it back on the stove, cook it down, and you're left with this, which I call wakame condiment. So like the inspiration behind it is basically like the kombu jams and stuff you see like out of Kyoto when you're in Japan. Like I had one when I was in Japan, and then seen little jars of them sometime in my friends' fridges, and then I was like, wait a minute, you know, if they can make that, I can make that. It's just from like leftover kombu from making dashi, right? And so I Googled it, and then I tried to make it, and it turned out really good. So now that's like one of my staple condiments that I use in the kitchen at work. The leaves of the wakame we dry, we make powders out of them, like this one. I use them for braising. And then the stem is actually, we pickle the stems and use it as like a super crunchy fresh vegetable. So I mean, this is probably one of the things, like, this is what I find really interesting about cooking at the moment, because it's like I've taken something that previously I just knew as a dried seaweed, and like we treat each part of it differently according to its texture, how it tastes. You know, it's kind of about like listening to the product and seeing what it wants you to do with it, I guess. I mean, I suppose that's something I kind of picked up from working for Michel Bras, that you just pay attention to things and it kind of follows naturally after that. Ideally, it does anyway. So anyway, I heat up the cooking liquid, blitz it with the liver from the abalone, add the wakame in, which also helps to thicken it naturally because it's got, you know, all of these carrageenans and things inside it, and blend it together, and then just monte in some butter, and that's the sauce, which we have here. It's kind of a really strange but delicious flavor. Yeah, so I'll let that heat, and then my lovely assistant has been out and char grilled some abalone skewers for me. So I cook these over charcoal at work. Well, actually over embers from the wood-fired oven. So Franklin, the restaurant that I run in Tassie, is it's essentially a 2-ton wood-fired Scotch oven in a 1920s Ford showroom, with a lot of poured concrete around it. So the oven's smack bang in the center, and then the kitchen's around that, and then the restaurant's around the outside. It's way bigger than we need. There's not that many people in Tasmania, but it's a very large, industrial, kind of slightly masculine sort of space. But I love it. It suits me. But so a lot of what we do is just getting produce in and sticking it in the wood oven and seeing what happens. And then taking embers out of the wood oven and grilling other things over them. All right, so we've got the skewers, heated the sauce. And wakame powder, which is just the leaves that have been dried out in the wood oven overnight. It's also the world's best dehydrator. And there you are. That is the dish.
Thank you so much, Annalise. Can I clarify one thing with the
Yes.
liver? Is the liver raw when it goes into the sauce?
No,
Or is it
so
cooked?
I cook the abalone in the shell, guts and everything.
Okay.
Just put your abalone straight in your bowl with your seaweed dashi, cling film it, and stick it in the steamer for 2 hours on 100.
Good to know. And your description of the sauce is strange yet delicious. Can you elaborate a little bit on the strangeness?
Maybe it's better if people taste it. I don't know. I suppose because abalone liver wasn't a flavor I was used to. So, yeah, I find it slightly odd, but really tasty at the same time. I guess a taste of the sea. That's what it is. I mean, it's just seaweed and the guts of the abalone, essentially, and butter to, like, smooth it out.
A sea smoothie.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, Annalise. That's
You're
been
welcome.
absolutely fascinating. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Tara. Thank you to all the wonderful chefs who took us to places very near and very far. It's just been really, really wonderful. And when Annalise was talking about strange and wonderful, I was reminded of Monique yesterday and, you know, sharing her heritage and the fact that, you know what, food doesn't have to be incredibly pretty as long as it's delicious. And I'm hoping that we get towards a little bit more of that. And it's really wonderful to hear these young chefs make that their focus, really. Speaking of, in the program and in the app, you'll see everyone's social media handle. I really encourage you to be following all of our chefs because you can see Annalise going fishing, for example. You can see what's going on at Single Thread. You can see Sau and what he's doing in the Philippines and all his travel. They all are very, very active on Instagram and on Twitter a little bit too, but Instagram has really become the medium for chefs. So if you want to continue following those chefs after you leave here, I really encourage you to go on journeys with them through that medium. We are going to the marketplace downstairs where there will be book signing, cultural entertainment featuring Caminos Flamenco's dance troupe, and then come back here in this room just after 2 p.m. There'll be a dessert tasting, and we'll start again with a general session at 2:15. Enjoy your lunch, everyone. Thank you.
Puree in a wide saucepan and bring to a simmer. Skim off any foam that forms. Cook the molasses until it coats the back of a spoon and has a molasses-like consistency. It should take Watermelon molasses is a delicious and extremely versatile condiment that can be used on anything from grilled meats and vegetables to dressings, marinades, and cocktails. Let's start with the heavy simple syrup. Combine your water and your sugar in a small saucepan and heat over medium-high heat. Stir until the sugar is dissolved and then remove from the heat and place aside to cool. Next, combine the lime, salt, olive oil, and simple syrup with the watermelon puree in a wide saucepan and bring to a simmer. Skim off any foam that forms. Cook the molasses until it coats the back of a spoon and has a molasses-like consistency. It should take about 10 to 15 minutes. Remember that the molasses will thicken as it cools. You should allow the molasses to cool completely before using. Watermelon molasses can be stored in the refrigerator for up to 3 months. It's a great way to use watermelon throughout the seasons. To find this recipe and others in this series, visit ciaprochef.com/watermelon. Here's a great way to minimize waste in the kitchen. I'm using the whole watermelon from the flesh to the rind in this Latin-inspired salad. First, we need to prepare the watermelon rind pickles. To do this, peel the outer green skin off of the watermelon. Cut the flesh off of the watermelon rind and leave just about 1/4 of an inch intact. Reserve the watermelon flesh for the salad. Dice the watermelon rind into 1-inch cubes. Set this aside. In a sauce pot, add your water, apple cider vinegar, sugar, ginger, salt, and spices, and bring this to a boil over medium-high heat, and boil for 60 seconds. Next, you want to add your watermelon very carefully. When it returns to a boil, take it off the heat. Portion your watermelon rind pickles into glass canning jars, and pour as much of the pickling juice as possible over the top. You should have about 2 quarts of pickles and liquid combined. Wipe the rim of the jar and place the lid on top. Leave the pickles at room temperature and cool until the lid creates a seal. You should hear a pop. Refrigerate these pickles overnight before use and consume them within a month. Next, we'll make the salad. For the dressing, combine the toasted cumin seeds, lime juice, salt, and pepper in a bowl and drizzle the olive oil in with a whisk to emulsify. In this recipe, we're going to use both red and yellow diced watermelon. Add the watermelon, watercress, poblano peppers, and cilantro to the bowl and gently toss to coat. Season with salt and pepper to taste. Arrange the salad onto a plate and garnish with the diced pickled watermelon rind, toasted pepitas, and the cotija cheese. I absolutely love the smoky, sweet, salty, and nutty flavors of this watermelon salad. To find this recipe and others in this series, visit ciaprochef.com/watermelon.
If somebody's starting cooking Thai food, I probably would recommend they will come to Thailand and then first of all see, I think the culture tells everything, telling about the food. So if you're coming here, you'll see the Thai people eating, or you can read about it, but I think at least you have to feel it, you have to see it, so you understand about the culture first before you go in deep into the cooking. All those kind of things that you need to know, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. So you basically have to come to Thailand and then maybe you enjoy Bangkok so you can see different things as well. There's so much to learn. I'm moving in since 2011. I think this is like my foundation when I started off, knowing Thai food, knowing ingredients, learn about ingredients first before I was cooking it. My family kitchen, I think, is much more street food style, and then more fresh ingredients, because we buy fresh ingredients every day. So we use the ingredients to cook after the 3 o'clock, because we have a green grocery, and then we use the ingredients to cook for the mini curries, stir-fry veg and stuff like that. Ramapho Market, I think, had a big influence that how I become today. You can get many things, live chicken, duck. They actually can do a slaughtered on the spot for you, and then you can get the chicken, the whole chicken, back home, or duck as well. All kinds of seafood, shrimps, shellfish, the freshwater fish, and then all kind of herbs coming from all over from Thailand. So this is like really a center
a big market that all the people surround Bangkok here come and shopping, like different type of fish. And then
I think Chef Ian has an amazing ability to take very, very traditional methods, ingredients, dishes, and then just finesse them in such a way that it just brings them that much up and makes it that much more interesting to eat. So for me, spending time with him, his knowledge on the history, on the food, just was great.
The first dish, Corwell catfish curry with sand ginger and Thai basil. You think about a catfish, the normal local catfish. And one day I found we have like a Corwell catfish, the catfish from the sea. It's wow, it's perfect, you know, the sea catfish or Corwell catfish is like perfect meat for the curry. Not chewy, it's really firm meat for the fish and go together with the sand ginger. A lot of layer of taste. Spicy stir-fry beef. We do like a semi-dry the beef, or we use secondary cut. It's a lot of tendon, a lot of fat, and we deep fry again to make outside crispy. 4 types of chili in the paste. We fry the paste with the pork fat, and this stir-fry inspired from China, but we mix from the spice from Thailand. Not only spiciness in Thai food, it's about the harmony. We're not coming for the spiciness, we're coming for the harmony to sourness, sweetness, saltiness, and spiciness. Everything coming together, and we can share. The idea here is family, and family is sharing. The sharing makes happiness. Yeah, this idea.